describe something to you, and you have to figure out what it is, okay? I have 4 legs, a tail, and a bark. Tell me what it is. Okay, I got 4 legs, a tail, and a meow. All right, I have 4 tires, a body around my tire, and it says Chevy across the front. Car or truck. Okay. I'm a very tall. There's about 120 floors. What type of a building am I? Skyscraper. I have stars and stripes that are blue and red and white. I'm sharing this with you because we all can pick up pretty quickly things that are described to us, right? Pretty quickly. We all know that when there's flashing red and blue behind us, it probably means we're going to be pulled over. Not all the time, but probably. And I was thinking about Christianity. I was thinking about my life, the life of our churches. You know, many people associate a church building with people being Christians. And that's actually simply not true. But many people associate that. And I was thinking about various times in our lives when we say things, act in ways by which there's no way anybody could see Jesus Christ in us. I've been to the gym before, and one day I see people wearing shirts that say, I love Jesus, and the next one they're saying, I love Jack Daniels. Okay, it doesn't say I love Jack Daniels, but the moment you put an alcohol thing on your shirt, guess what people assume you like to do? And you can say, but I got the shirt for free, then throw it away. Use it for rags or something. And you might be saying, well, that's kind of hard. No. You see, guys, we don't have a political problem in America today. What you saw yesterday is not a political problem, no matter what people are going to spin it on today. It's not a political problem. It's a godless problem in our society. And people better get that through their head very quickly. It's a godless problem. And I was thinking about our lives as Christians, thinking about who we are, thinking about, do people see Christ through you? Do people see Christ through me? Do people see Christ through our lives? And I want you to take your Bibles, please, and I want to share with you from the book of Matthew. And I want you to see from Matthew starting in verse 13, chapter 5, verse 13, and we're going to go down to verse 16. And I want you to hear this because these verses, he's not talking to anybody but believers, okay? He's not talking to a non-believer. He is speaking to you as a believer. He is speaking to me as a believer, okay? Listen to what he says. You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by people. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Your light must shine before people in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. I want to tell you a story about a man who lived up on a mountainside in Austria. And this man, he lived up there, and he was hired by the city that was below him. And his job was very simple. His job was to make sure that the waters running off the mountain into the village were kept clean of debris. So if a tree fell down across the water, he would remove the tree. If the pools in the water would get leaves and other things in them, he would remove them. He was faithful at everything that he did. He never missed a time going up and down the hills and making sure that the water was in good shape. He'd even clean away the silt at the bottom of them. And because of his actions, because of his faithfulness, the town became very popular. People would flock to this town to see the pristine water. They would come to this town and they'd see all kinds of birds because the birds loved the clean water. And they had mills that were there and they turned water, and businesses thrived because of this. Farmlands were plentiful, and they had plenty of water because of that. But several years passed, and new people came in to the council of this local town. And one of them was looking at the budget and said, "Why do we pay this guy? Why do we pay this guy? Why do we do so?" And he convinced everyone else that they no longer needed to pay this guy to take care of the waters. So they said, "Well, we don't know who this man is." And he says, "Well, then why do we keep him on our payroll year after year after year? No one ever sees him." They said, "For all we know, this stranger could be roaming up in the hills, and he's good for nothing. He isn't necessary for us any longer." So by unanimous vote, they did away with the salary for this man on the mountain. Several weeks passed by, and absolutely nothing happened. The water was still pristine. The water was clean. Then autumn came. Leaves filled up the water. Trees fell into the water. And all of a sudden, the water stopped flowing the way that it used to. The water was no longer sparkly, but it was kind of turning muddy. And people in town, they noticed this. And all of a sudden, they were like, "Well, it's no big deal. It's just a temporary thing." In a couple of weeks, the water itself was no longer clean. It was stinky and it was nasty. And they soon realized that the wheels of water were turning slower. And they realized that the tourists stopped coming. They realized that the birds quit coming. So very quickly, this city council decided, we better figure out what's going on. So they quickly had a special called meeting, and they got together and said, "We made a mistake." And they said, "We've got to fix this." So they hired him back. And within just a few short weeks, the water became clear again. You might be asking and thinking to yourself, what does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with staying balanced in my life? What does that have to do with the world knowing whether or not I'm a believer? And I want us to think about this for just a moment. That his job was to make sure that the springs of water were clean. His job was to make sure that when the water came down, that the people could enjoy it. You see, as Christians, that's our job. See, as Christians, our job is to make sure that the people see the real Jesus of the real Bible that we have. And here we see this taking place. And here we see, here in Matthew chapter 5, we know, and you all know, that it's impossible for us to live a perfect life. We know that it's impossible to be perfect. We know that we can't do this. But Christian, I want you to know something, that we also can't live a private life. Christian, we can't live a life that says, I'm going to live quietly and hope everybody will leave me alone. I don't have to interact with anybody. As long as I go to church, as long as I read my Bible, as long as I do the things God tells me to do, I'm just fine. You see, here was this city. And they decided, hey, you know what? We don't need this guy anymore. The water, they didn't realize how much he took care of that water. And Jesus here in Matthew chapter 5, he just finished the Beatitudes. He just finished, and he's talking to you and he's talking to me that he says to us to understand this, that the Beatitudes are something that we're supposed to live. You go through there, it tells us, that we're supposed to hunger and thirst after righteousness. We're supposed to be merciful. We're supposed to be peacemakers and so forth. These are ways in which you and I as Christians are supposed to live. And now we find in verses 13 through 16, we find that these verses talk about our impact on the world around us. Okay? So Beatitudes have everything to do with how we're to live our life. And now here in these verses of Salt and Light have everything to do with how you and I, how our church, and how we as Christians are to impact the world, to influence the world around us. Okay? This is where Jesus has gone to. Now, if you look there in verse 13, and I don't care what translation of the Bible you're using this morning, this one says to you, and it says to me, this is what you are. Period. You are this, Christian. You are salt. I don't care what version of the Bible you're using, that's what it says. You are this, okay? This is what we need to remember. And as we understand this, he says, you are the salt. This is what you are, okay? So, Christian, what you think about your life? Are you salt? Church, are we salt? Okay, you might say, well, okay, I've heard this sermon before. Okay, well, listen to it again. All right, listen to what it says. He says very clearly to us, very simply put to us, that we are salt. And guys, this isn't an option. I want you to understand something here. When we look at these verses, he doesn't say, if you're in the mood, Christian, if you feel like it, church. He says, this is what you are. All right? So as I was looking through this and thinking about this, when you know someone is genuine, when you know someone is honest, when you know someone is straightforward, when you know somebody who is not a hypocrite, somebody might describe that person as they're the salt of the earth, pure. And I was thinking about us as Christians. Think about what exactly does Jesus want from us? See, today we value money, do we not? I mean, we value it more than we probably ever have in history. But during the Romans time frame, a lot of their soldiers didn't get paid in money. Anybody want to guess what they got paid in? Salt. Okay? Got paid in salt. In fact, if they didn't get paid in salt, at times they would revolt. Because, ladies, guys, salt's good for a lot of things in cooking, am I right? Salt is good for melting that ice that's outside. Salt is good for these things. And I want to encourage everyone else and to remember this, that we are to be the salt of the world. In fact, the Latin word for salt is salarium. Okay? And salarium literally meant salt money. Okay, that's how important it was. And as we're thinking about our Christian lives, and understand something, that the number one thing salt is a preservative. That's the number one thing. You guys ever can? How many of you guys like bacon? Let me see. How many of you guys like bacon? How about ham? How many of you guys like saltless bacon and saltless ham? No, not a chance, right? Not a chance, okay? Because you see, salt is a preservative. That's the first use for salt. It's a preservative, okay? We need to understand that that's the very first thing. It slows down spoiling. It actually adds taste. You and I as Christians, we're supposed to be preservatives to our world. We're supposed to be preservatives to the world that is around us. We're supposed to be the ones that influence our society, not the society influencing us. Did you know that? Society is not supposed to be influencing the church. The church is supposed to be influencing society by the salt that we are. Remember, underline that, guys. You are salt. Okay? Right there, Jesus spoke these words. He said, this is what you are. I want you to imagine in our country today. And as we think about our country today, all the things going on around us, what if there were no Christian colleges? What if there was no church-supported hospitals? What if there was no Christian on social media? What if there was no Christian organizations to help meet and be the salt of our society today? I want you to think about that for a moment. Because I want you to know something. Our government is trying its best to shut down the salt, okay? They're doing their very best. And the reality is as their efforts have failed so miserably, guys, just look around at the miserable society that we live in, and make no mistake about this, our society is miserable. Okay, they're miserable. And the only way they know how to get out of their potential misery is by lashing out. And that's what we're seeing today in the United States of America in July of 2024. Americans lashing out because they have no other choice. They're just living a life that is so amazingly wrong, and they know it. And it's interesting here, so that salt is a preservative. And the second thing it is we like this one, salt's a what? A preservative, as for seasoning. How many of you guys like salt? Come on, all right? Salt is a good thing, and salt is a good thing. And none of those of you who didn't raise your hand, you must eat like saltless potato chips or something. What do you eat? Okay, we all like salt. Okay, we need salt in our body. Okay, I want you to think about this for just a moment, Guys, as Christians, not only are we to be the salt of the earth, we need to remember that part of our responsibility is that being a Christian, and following after Jesus Christ, is what is supposed to bring happiness to our lives. This is what is supposed to draw people to Jesus Christ. This is what's supposed to draw people to want to come to church. This is what it's all about. And the same God we serve today is the same God who 1,000 years ago existed. He drew people to him. And I think about society today, guys, I want you to know something. We base things in our society on success by how many people show up or how many units of something we sell. And I'm thinking about churches today, and I'm thinking about all this other thing, and thinking about what church, does this church do something better than this church, or this church do better something than that church? But the reality is, no church, I don't care how many people attend it, I don't care if they have a superstar pastor, if they are not salt and light, they're only fooling themselves. Period. Our job is to be salt and light, Christian, that's it. We need to understand this. We have to do this. This is what people around us desperately need. Do you guys realize a 20-year-old young man shot at President Trump yesterday, 20 years old? 20 years old, guys, that's a problem. We have 20-year-olds wanting to kill people. That's a problem. It's a huge problem. We better quit ignoring the massive problem in our country, and it's not Republican or Democrat. It's no God. It's godlessness. We got to address that topic. We have to. And all we're going to do is let's just put a new president in there. Yeah, but we're still going to keep going down the same path because we're going to leave God out. God says don't do that. Christian, don't leave God out of your life. Church, we can't leave God out of our lives. We need to remember this. We have to be a flavoring. And guys, it is not about our music style. It is not about our preaching style. It is not what translation of the Bible uses. It is not about how good a Sunday school teacher is or isn't. It's whether or not people are seeing the salt and light of Jesus Christ. We have to understand this. Guys, it is that vital. It is that vital that people see Jesus Christ in you, that he sees Jesus Christ in me, and you don't see him through emotions. And that's what a lot of our churches have become today, is emotional, driven, and they will never reach people for Jesus Christ the way they're supposed to. We have to remember this. He said, this is what you are. Now, the next one nobody likes. I remember when I was a kid. How many of you guys remember the red, iodine you put on your fingers? Oh, it's not going to hurt. So let me put it on your finger instead of mine, okay? How many of you guys ever put salt on something? You ever put salt on the cut, Ruby? It hurts, doesn't it? Okay, why? Because salt is also an antiseptic. It's an antiseptic, right? That's what it does. That's what it is, okay? In ancient times, so this would have been, like 2 years ago, like ancient times, okay? When a child was born, they put salt in their eyes. They put salt, and they rubbed it on cuts. They rubbed it on so infections wouldn't take place. This is something that they did, but it was something to clean out. And I can to this day, as I'm even think about it, the red stuff, I just call it the red stuff that they put on my cups, I can still feel it burning today, okay? Okay, but it was meant to be a cleansing agent. Christian, please listen to me. We are not an antiseptic to the world when we embrace the world and say that lifestyle's okay. We're not an antiseptic. We are not. If we say, oh, that's just the way they are. Yep, you're right. They're lost and sinners and going to hell without Jesus. If we're okay with that's just how they are, then we have a problem. You see, nobody likes to be corrected. But I want you to know something. Our world is going to hell, and if we as a church don't care, the world is not going to care. And we have to be an antiseptic. But you know what's going to happen in order for that to take place? They're going to hate you. They're going to hate the church. Right? We beat around the bush. Okay? I had somebody say something to me yesterday, and I said, have you actually looked that up? Have you actually looked up what you just told me to be truth, a lie, or not? You see, we have to understand as Christians, he says this is what you are. Okay? Underline that word, Christian. Underline it. This is what you are. You are the salt of the earth. This is what you're about. Then he also says this, salt creates thirstiness, right? Come on, nobody can eat a potato chip, or at least if you can, that's more power. You have more power than I do, okay? Eating potato chip with that salty potato chip and not want something to drink with it. Popcorn, how many guys are salty popcorn without something to drink with it, right? Okay, salt creates thirst. You've ever heard the phrase before, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? We've heard that before. But the rest of the saying goes like this. You can give him salt tablet and make him thirsty. You see, I want you to know, people are not naturally drawn to church. Did you know that? They're not. People are not naturally drawn to the salt. They're not naturally drawn to the light of Jesus Christ. They are not. Because if they were, guess what, guys? Churches would be filled across our country every single time the doors were open. They're not. And you and I, as a job, we've got to make sure that people are thirsty for who Jesus Christ is. And when you or me or the church, we become just like the world, there'll be no thirstiness. There will be no hungering after Jesus Christ. We as America have a problem in a society that needs Jesus. That is the problem with America today. And then we need to, second thing he says, so are we creating thirst in the lives of people around us? Or do we just kind of hold on to it? Okay, I want you to know, our world, guys, people want to try to explain away evil. Did you know that? Here's the deal. You can't explain away evil without explaining good. Okay, you can't have one without the other. People want to deny the goodness of God, but man, they want to go right at the evil thing. The problem is it doesn't work that way. We know from a fact, guys, I want you to know something. I'll let you in a little secret, okay? Evil's been around since Adam and Eve ate of the tree they weren't supposed to. This ain't a new phenomenon. This isn't something all of a sudden came out of the blue. This is new. This is not new. It's been around since Adam and Eve. Evil is real. But here's the deal. So is God's goodness. So is God's love. So is God's forgiveness. But Christian, are you, church? Are we a flavoring? Are we a preservative? Are we an antiseptic? Are we having people thirst after Jesus Christ? And not with our emotions. Guys, not with our emotions, but with our heart. Are we doing so? The second thing, verse 14, he says this. I want you to know something. First of all, understand something. That salt is useless unless it's used for what it's supposed to be used for. Okay? So that's what he said there at the end of the rest of verse 13. It's completely useless. And something else to think about this too is salt is always salt, no matter how old it is. Did you know that? You can put salt in a container, buried in the ground for 150 years, it comes out still as salt. Okay? That doesn't change. And so as Christians, we can't change. We have to make sure people know who Jesus Christ is. And then he goes on to verse 14. He says this to us. Now remember, guys, I started out with, I hope you underlined it. He says, this is who you are. You are the salt of the earth. Now, verse 14 says, this is who you are. Okay? You are the light of the world. So you are the salt and you are the light. He didn't say, if you feel like being that way. See, you guys, this is what is so important. If you and I are truly going to be salt and light, then we can't leave here, go to a restaurant or go to work tomorrow or whatever it might be and check, and as we walk out the door, leave the light and darkness in the building. Leave those attributes about who we're supposed to be right here. So when you go to work tomorrow or you go to Walmart tomorrow or whatever you might do, and all of a sudden, do you pay attention enough to what you're wearing, what your attitude is, how you're living? Again, you can say, I've had a bad day today. Everybody has bad days. Okay? I want you to know that everybody has bad days. Everybody has struggles. Everybody has those things. That doesn't give us a right to stop being salt and light. Okay? Just so you know ahead of time. It does not. So I can remember, and I'm not making this up, I can remember seeing a shirt at the Y, praising Jesus, and the next time they were wearing an alcoholic shirt. Guess what? I questioned. You can fill in a blank if you like. See, because guys, as Christians, we're either salt or we're not. We're either light or we're not. We don't get to play games with that. Jesus didn't say, again, if you're having a good day, everything's going your way, everything will be great. If that's the case, then be salt, be light. No, he said, this is who you are. This is who you are. Now, Notice what he says again. You are the light of the world. But here's a cool thing. He says, a city set on a hill cannot be what? Hidden. So if I'm going around claiming and professing to be a Christian and I'm hiding it, he says, not how it works. He says, this is who, remember, you are. This is who you are. He says, you are the light. This is yours. So you and I, we don't get to say, you know what, I'm going to put on my jacket as best I can, strap it down, button it all the way up to the top that nobody sees the light. Okay? He says, no, this is who you are. This is what it's all about. And it's interesting here because when you look up, you can do this if you like. I'm not making this up. When you look up the word light and you can define it, light literally means a source of illumination. We all know that. Turn the lights off and here it's not nearly as bright as it is. Okay, you go home and it's dark, you turn the lights, it's not nearly as bright until you turn the light on. So it's a source. So you and I, as Christians, we as a church, we are a source of illumination. Literally, that's what we are, which implies what? It implies that our world is in darkness. That's what it implies. In fact, clearly implies. We need to remember this. So now let's look at some good things of light. It dispels darkness. Number one, we all get that. We all know that. When I became a Christian, the darkness of the darkness that was in my life was lit by Jesus Christ. It was changed by Jesus Christ. We need to remember this. That you and I as Christians, we're to be reflecting the light of Jesus. Now, we can't become Jesus, right? No, we can't become him. But the last I read in my Bible, it says he lives in me. And since he lives in me, his light can be out there reflecting. And by the way here, guys, you don't have to do this in another program. You just have to simply live your life for Jesus Christ. Please remember this. If we think we've got to form something so that people can see our light in Jesus Christ, we probably should get the light in us. Okay? Because the light's already there. It's already there. The question is, what are you doing with it? What am I doing with it? We need to remember, but ultimately, this light is a good thing. How do you guys plant gardens? So as soon as you put, Dave, as soon as you put your corn and your beans in the ground the next morning, they were growing. The sunflowers were like 7 foot tall. They were ready to be picked, right? No. Okay? The number one thing that plants need besides water is sunlight, right? And so sunlight causes them to grow. In your life, in my life, sometimes it may seem so. How many of you guys want something as soon as you want it? Okay? As soon as you want it, all right? Okay, so, but the thing is, sometimes that light might take a little while to get things to grow. But if we never turn the light on, if people never see the light, nothing will ever grow, okay? And Christian, that's what I want to encourage you to do. Encourage you, come, be part of the things we have at the church. Come, be part of the food pantry. Come, be part of the apartments. Come, be part of Sunday School. Why? So then you can have light or be a light for someone to see. You see, that's what it needs to be. Christian, I'm telling you right now, you'll never live to the potential that God wants you to live if you make Christianity about you and on your terms. Okay? Christ didn't do it that way. He said, Christian, it's a 24-hour, 365-day-a-year gig. Okay? It happens every single day of your life. So it dispels darkness. Second thing it does, it reveals. Okay? How do you guys ever been in a cave and it's pitch black and you turn the light and like, wow, where'd that come from? Okay? I've been there. All right? I want you to know that when a light all of a sudden comes on, you can see everything, can't you? All right? You can see it. And so I want us to think about, and I want you to think about in our lives, light around us, people will see, makes you aware. How many of you guys have a light on in your room, so if you have to get up at night, you don't kick the wall? Okay? I don't, but I put my hand right next to the bed, so I know exactly where the bed is. Okay? How do you guys, when your kids were little, they had a night light? Oh yeah, you did. Okay, the good possibility you did may not have been in their room, may have been in the hallway, so they knew the light was. But why? It could reveal and it can awaken, so they knew where to go. As Christians, guys, I want to encourage us. We are the light. How many of you guys have been in a lighthouse before? Ever been in a lighthouse? What's the point of them? To warn people, right? Hey, shore's coming. These are big rocks right here. Pay attention. So another thing that light does for you and does for me is that it warns us. It warns people around us that something's coming. Be careful. Pay attention so you don't get sunk. Christian, this is what we are. We're salt and we are light. Now, how can we make an impact, right? You know, you look around us today, and I promise you our news is going to be consumed with what happened yesterday. Don't worry, give it a few days. It's going to be consumed by something different. But the reality is that's what's going to happen. And I want you to think about our lives. I want you to think about yourself personally. Now, listen, when you read the Bible, if you're thinking of somebody else who should be reading that when you're reading the Bible, then you better reread what you read because it's about you, okay, when you do that. All right, so when you're reading this, and when we read this, I'm going to ask you a simple question. How are you doing with those two things? How are you doing with them? How are you doing being salt? How are you doing being salt? How are you doing being light? How are you doing being light, guys? How are you doing it? How are you doing it? You see, because he is talking to you as an individual. Remember, salvation is individual. It doesn't happen as a group. It happens as an individual. And our light and darkness has nothing to do with what somebody else does with theirs. Nothing to do with it. And it has everything to do with who we are. So I want us to understand that, guys, we are commanded as Christians to be different. We're commanded as Christians to be completely different and to make a difference. All right? This is something that we need to remember. How many of you guys can tell the difference between salt and light? How many can tell the difference between salt and pepper? How about salt and paprika? How about salt and garlic? They're pretty good when they're mixed together, especially like, on something. But the reality is, see, there's that flavor. There's that flavor, right? Okay, the reality is, as we think about this, guys, what makes Christians different than anybody else? It's Jesus. What makes us different? It's Jesus. What makes you different? What makes me different? It is Jesus Christ. That's what makes us different. So the question is, are you letting it impact your life? Remember, a command is not an option. A command isn't something, again, we wake up in the morning and go, I'll think about following it today. Jesus Christ didn't die on the cross for your stubbornness and my stubbornness to say, I'm going to follow it today. It's not why he died. He said, this is who you are, Christian. This is who you are to be each and every day, church. Not if you feel like it. I didn't die for if you feel like it. I died because you have to be this way because the world needs me. Okay? And I'm convinced after pastoring for 31 years that more Christians, we act like if we think about it, if we feel like it, then we'll do it. If not, we'll blame somebody else for not doing it, and we'll act like we've done it. Seen it in 31 years. We've got to remember this. You are not responsible for somebody else, so quit acting like you are. Quit worrying about what they're doing and do what you're called to do. That's what you have to do. Quit worrying about what other people do or don't do. Do what God called you to do. You're salt and you're light. That's what we're supposed to do. Remember this, and there's a difference between the two. We need to be distinctive from the world around us. So we got to understand this, guys. This is why our world is so messed up. They think all Christians are the same. If a person doesn't worship Jesus Christ, take away the Christian part of them because they're not Christians. Take it away. They have to have Jesus. Do you have Jesus this morning? How do you make an impact? Guys, I want you to see something here. Look at verse 13 of Matthew 5. This is important. It says, but if the salt has become tasteless, how can it be made salty again? The answer is it cannot be. Okay? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by people. Remember, salt is always salt. You can't do anything. It always is what it is. And the only way the salt loses its saltiness is when you try to mix it with something and hide its influence. You might say, that's not true. Sure it is. I want you to go home today, put a teaspoon of salt in 45 pounds of hamburger and cook it together. You won't taste any salt. But what will you see? 45 pounds of fried hamburger. But you won't taste the salt. See, so it can happen. See, that's what the church is trying to do today. We're trying to mix a little bit of salt into a world that desperately needs all of it, into a world that desperately needs the light. And instead, we're mixing in just a little bit. We'll mix a little bit in, and maybe people will come to church, or maybe people will listen to me, or maybe. But the reality is that if you and I are not close to Christ, if you and I don't spend time with Jesus Christ, that means we're mixing our lives with something else. That's what it means we're doing. But Doug, I work 75 hours a week. Okay, let's see, 75 hours, 24 times 7. Still got some time over, guys. But I'm tired. I know, so was Jesus when he went on his mission journeys, when he walked. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm just being honest with you. So was Jesus, so was his disciples. See, Jesus and his disciples, they complained a lot. We're tired. Jesus said, okay, go lay down. I'll go down the mountain, lead these people to my Father, and then you can go on. Okay? Why was Jesus still on the mountain and had to walk on the sea? Do you know why? Because the disciples were tired. And Jesus said, I'll take care of this. You see, Christian, let's get past this whole thing about me, because there's nothing about Christianity for you or for me. It's not about us one single ounce. It's about Jesus Christ. Are you salt? Are you light? Are you staying close to him? Are you being affected by the world, or are you affecting the world? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not spending time with God, you've lost. The world's winning. Church, if we don't spend enough time with God, it is going to win. The world is going to do so. So how do we do this? By staying close to Jesus. Close to Jesus. We got to remember this, that we have to have contact in our life with Jesus Christ. We can't be light. We can't be salt if we're not spending any time with the light. We're not trying to spend any time with the salt. We can't even be it. When I read these passages, I want to encourage. He's speaking to all these people in the Sermon on the Mount, saying this is what you have to be. This is what it's all about. We have to make sure we expose ourselves to Jesus Christ. And again, if the only time you or I ever get exposed to Jesus Christ is every Sunday morning, and that's it. We don't read our Bible the rest of the week. We don't go to any other activities that the church has the opportunity. And I say activities, I'm talking about learning about God. Okay? If we don't do any of those things, then guys, it's going to produce weakness in our lives. WEAKNESS, weakness in our lives. Let's not let that happen. The world around us wants to change us. Guys, I don't know about you, but I see what the world's doing on around us. I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be through that hatefulness that's there. I don't want to get so mad that I want to shoot somebody. I don't want to get so brainwashed that I think I can change who I am. That's what we become as a culture. And we're saying it's okay, and it's not okay. It's not okay. Guys, we have murders and people being shot in our town every single day, it seems like. It's not acceptable. It's not normal. But yet that's exactly what happens. It says, verse 14, he says, a city set on a hill cannot be hidden. It doesn't matter. You might say, but I don't understand. I don't have that much influence on people. I want you to know something. I very seldom have to put any salt on my food when I eat. Okay? Jennifer puts plenty of salt on there for me. It's funny because I'll make mashed potatoes. And one of my daughters will look at me and go, it needs more salt. And I'm like, really? Okay. Let me take a few out before I put more salt in there, okay? But you see, it's not about how much salt you expose people to. It's about exposing them to it. It's not about how much light we expose. It's about exposing them. Guys, I want you to write this down. There's no such thing as secret discipleship. I'm going to disciple myself. You're only being fooled by Satan. Okay? That's not how it works. And so don't fall into that. We need to be seasoning for people to see us. We need so that people will follow after Jesus Christ. Guys, if we avoid going to church, if we avoid reading our Bibles, if we avoid being salt, if we avoid being light, then we're going to influence no one. We're going to influence not a soul. But you understand, our worship services are dynamic. Yay. That's great. But are our worship services salt and light? Because if they're not, yay, they're just another service. We have to remember this. That's so important. It's interesting here in the book of Matthew. We're in chapter 5. And we're not going to turn there, but if you just go back to the last chapter, which is 23 chapters later, just 23 chapters later, so there's 28 chapters. What you're going to find in just 3 years, that covers 3 years of Jesus' life, from chapter 5 to chapter 28. What you're going to find here, Jesus went from being salt and light to go make disciples in 3 years. So listen, so what we can also learn from that is this, is that, guys, as much as we think we can automatically do something, sometimes we need to be trained to do it, okay? Sometimes we need some help doing it. Sometimes we simply, hey, I'm not quite sure how to do this. But if you're at home being a secret disciple, then you're never going to be able to learn those things. And this is what I want you to be thinking about. Who are you impacting? Who are you impacting? Who sees the salt in you? Who sees the light in you? Who sees the salt in our church? Who sees the light in our church? Who does? And I can tell you guys this, over the years I've met a lot of people said, you're different. And you know what I tell them? I'm different because of one person and one person only, Jesus Christ. That's what we need to remember. I want to close with a verse I want to read to you. What's the big deal about being light? What's the big deal about being salt? Okay, listen to verse 16, okay, of Matthew 5. He says, let your light must shine before people. So in other words, it is not meant to be left somewhere except for people to see it. And in fact, it's done in such a way. Listen to what Jesus is pretty straightforward here on what we're supposed to do with our light, okay? He says this, before people in such a way that they may see your good works. Listen, we are to perform good works for Jesus Christ so that people see the light of Jesus Christ. Did you know that? Okay, we're not talking about earning our salvation here. We're talking about pointing people to Jesus. This is what he just said. He said we're supposed to do so people can see the light. Remember, a secret disciple is not going to do that. Okay, it's just not going to happen. He says here we are to do so that people can see the light, see our works. But why? Now let's not leave out the last part. So that people can see God. So people can glorify God. Where are you at this morning? Christian, I know for a fact there's times in which our salt isn't there. I know for a fact there's times that we have taken the dimmer switch on the light and we turn it down. I know this is fact. And if you have never done those two things, I want you to write a book for us, please, and show us how not to do those things. But the reality is that things happen in life. But also the reality is, he says, this is who you are. But again, Doug, you don't understand. My life's tough. You don't understand how busy I am. You don't understand where I live. You don't understand my friends or my job. You're right, I don't. But you know what? I do understand who Jesus Christ is. And I do understand the Bible tells us he never changes. Right? He doesn't change. And since he doesn't change, will you let him work in your life if you're struggling right now with those things? He says, you are the salt. You are the light. Will you let him be that way? Brother Donnie, would you come?
Would you stand with us, please, as we sing Near to the Heart of God? There is a place of quiet rest near to the heart of God, a place where sin place of comfort sweet, near to the heart of God, a place where we our
trust Him this morning?
Savior meet.
Are you that salt and light?
Near to the heart of God.
You can't blame a soul for your saltiness or light. It's yours.
Jesus blessed Redeemer.
Are you struggling with that right now? Will you
Sent
let
from
people, will
the
you let God know
heart
that right now? Will you
of
just say, God, I need help. Help me.
us who wait
Or if you've never trusted
before
Jesus Christ this morning, will you call on His name?
near to
Come visit with me.
the
I'll share with you.
heart of
The
God.
Bible tells us, for whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved.
There is a place
trust Him this
of full
So we've all sinned and fall short of the glory
release,
of God.
near
Says,
to
I
the
still
heart of God,
love you. We've come
a place where all is joy and peace, near to the heart of God. Oh, Jesus, blessed Redeemer, sent from the heart of God, us who wait before Thee, near to the heart of God.
Father God, I thank you for the fact that you love us. Lord, that you've said to us, we are salt. We are light. Lord, I pray, Father God, that we will be that. I pray, Father God, that you'll help us to just be close to you, spend time with you, Lord, so we can be that. And forgive us, Lord, of our shortcomings with that, Lord, and just give us strength to be your people. Bring us back here tonight, Lord, to worship you, and I ask these things in your name. Amen. Thank you for coming. Please remember, we're doing the Lord's Supper tonight. We'll be next door. We'll continue through the book of Ruth as well. Thank you.